This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com.
This episode is brought to you by Espolón Tequila. Slow, sticky, snoozy. They call these the dog days of summer. But Espolón? They don't do boring. Welcome to the Marg Days. Espolón Tequila. 100% blue Weber agave, born to shake up your summer. Just add lime, agave, and a little attitude. Visit EspolónTequila.com. Espolón Tequila, 40% alcohol, volume 80 proof. Copyright 2025 Campari America, New York, New York. Drink responsibly.
The Roger Stone Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome to the Roger Stone Show. Well, you can't blame me for being somewhat obsessed with the Russian collusion hoax. After all, it turned my life upside down. It bankrupted me and my family. We lost our home, our savings, my car, my insurance, and actually my ability to make a living because a federal judge unconstitutionally gagged me so I couldn't even defend myself in any medium at all: radio, television, cable, social media. And of course, it was all a fugazi. In other words, once they got two different federal judges to allow a search warrant to inspect all of my emails, text messages, phone calls, and to interview virtually everyone I knew and had worked with for a 20-year period, and they could find no evidence whatsoever of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime, they conjured up this fraudulent claim saying that I had lied under oath in my voluntary testimony before the House Intelligence Committee. But how can one lie about something that never actually happened? The judge in my case, Judge Amy Berman Jackson, who frankly is both mentally deranged and extraordinarily corrupt, said, and I quote, "You have been convicted of lying to cover up for President Donald Trump." To which I say, cover up what? The Russian collusion? See, it's now all completely out in the open thanks to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Just weeks ago, she declassified documents that indisputably prove that Barack Obama, Vice President Joe Biden, CIA Director John Brennan, FBI Director James Comey, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, the Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, Campaign Manager for Hillary Clinton John Podesta, Acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and yes, indeed, folks, Hillary Clinton herself were involved in the greatest single dirty trick in American political history, nothing less than a massive abuse of power in which they used the full authority of the United States government and the incredible capability of our intelligence agencies to try to utilize two pieces of what they knew were fabricated evidence, the so-called Steele dossier. That was a fabricated report paid for and commissioned by Hillary Clinton's campaign that claimed that Donald Trump had cavorted with Russian prostitutes while visiting Moscow as a private businessman and was therefore compromised. And also the false claim that the Democrat National Committee had been the target of an online hack by Russian intelligence, a claim for which there is no proof or evidence whatsoever. Robert Mueller even indicted 17 Russians in this alleged hack, a case that never even went to discovery. But then his prosecutors ruled that I had to be tried before Judge Amy Berman Jackson because my case was related to the case of the alleged 17 Russian hackers. In fact, prosecutors promised Judge Jackson that they would produce evidence against me that was gleaned from search warrants in that case, which they never did because no such evidence existed. It was not a great period of time in my life, yet I have no regrets. You see, they arrested me in an over-the-top raid at my home at 6 o'clock in the morning for the first time nonviolent crime of allegedly lying to Congress under oath. My home was stormed by 29 SWAT-clad, night goggle-wearing FBI agents brandishing fully automatic M4 assault weapons when they simply could have said to my attorneys, with whom they had communicated the day before, that I should turn myself in. But that, of course, would not have made that made-for-television moment because, as I think the world knows, CNN had a camera crew a mere 25 feet from my front door. CNN got an award from the White House Correspondents Association for their incisive investigative reporting that determined that I would be arrested on that exact day and time. But interestingly enough, I was arrested at 6:06 in the morning. At 6:11, a producer from CNN sent a copy of my sealed indictment to one of my lawyers by text. And the document she sent had no time stamps, no time markings. That's because it was not unsealed until 10:30 that morning. So how could CNN have such a document? Well, if you went to the metadata tags on the document, you see it was written by Andrew Weissman, the man who leaked the document in violation of law. You see, leaking a search or an arrest warrant is a felony. But the judge in my case didn't care, nor did she care that the jury forewoman in my case, who said during jury selection and during the trial that she was unfamiliar with my case, didn't know much about me, but she had been attacking me and Donald Trump by name on both her Twitter and Facebook postings for 19 months prior to her being selected in the very case that she criticized me for online. But the judge ruled that was not evidence of bias. Now, thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, the entire scandal is broken over. This is not investigative journalism. This is not speculation. These people are busted. And now Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who joins us right here on the Roger Stone Show, a little later in the show, has declassified even more explosive documents demonstrating that there was a 6-year fight with a whistleblower inside the intelligence community to reveal the Russiagate hoax. Gabbard said, this whistleblower risked everything to expose a scandal that subverted democracy. Gabbard also said the whistleblower was threatened by his supervisor in an attempt to keep them quiet, and that the whistleblower was promised a promotion if they would go along. The documents show even more evidence that the Obama administration used the discredited Steele dossier while knowing full well it was false and silenced those intelligence officers who were sounding the alarm. The documents released by Gabbard reveal that Obama's director of national intelligence, James Clapper, and others in Obama's inner circle spoke loudly about the dubiousness of the Steele dossier, but still allowed it to be included in the intelligence community assessment to fuel the Russian collusion hoax, and thus put the United States through 3 years of hell. The IC whistleblower exhausted every avenue to expose this hoax, reaching out to former special counsel John Durham, as well as reaching out to one U.S. senator, but to no avail. It was only because Tulsi Gabbard, who's going to join us shortly right here on the Roger Stone Show, became the director of national intelligence and empowered whistleblowers that this person is now being heard, a testimony to Tulsi Gabbard's effectiveness in her role. As I say, now that the contents of the annex of Special Counsel John Durham's investigation into the origins of the Russiagate are fully known, it paints an even clearer picture of how this conspiracy to frame Donald Trump took place in exact terms. The Democrat National Chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who reminds every man who's been married twice of his first wife, worked with a man named Leonardo Bernardo of the George Soros Open Society Foundation to create the phony Steele dossier. That information would eventually be laundered through the FBI, the Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS, and then, of course, the fake news media to create a scandal that was devised for the sole purpose of undermining President Trump and the will of the American people. It's funny because these files were found in burn bags by FBI Director Kash Patel in a hidden room at the FBI headquarters. It was sealed off during the days of co-conspirator FBI Director James Comey. Thankfully, due to bureaucratic incompetence and confusion, these crucial files were not destroyed. And here's why it's important. Because these are the documents that prove beyond a shadow of doubt that Hillary Clinton herself not only knew about the plan, but signed off on it. Now they will be used as the basis to put hundreds, if not thousands, of deep state and Democrat-aligned criminals behind bars. The swamp is being drained, and frankly, MAGA should rejoice in response to this incredible, historic breakthrough. Meanwhile, President Trump has fired the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, Dr. Erica McIntyre, blaming McIntyre for manipulating the jobs report in the lead up to the 2024 elections to try to help Kamala Harris's chances at achieving victory. I saw that Larry Summers, who served in the cabinet of Bill Clinton, saying that it is impossible to rig the job statistics at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But Barry Habib, one of the country's foremost experts on the mortgage and housing markets, is going to join us a little later in the show to tell us exactly how they rigged those numbers. He's actually revealed that right here on the Roger Stone Show many times in the past. There's a pattern where they put out the jobs numbers to try to benefit them politically. It gets huge headlines, and then they wait a couple weeks and they downsize the numbers very, very substantially. They also use seasonal adjustments and other tricks to make the job market numbers look better than they ever were. So President Trump has now fired the woman in charge. Cory Booker is up in arms about it. We're going to talk about him on the show a little bit today because I've decided to take the book I wrote on Cory Booker, Spartacus, the real Cory Booker story, which is out of print right now, and republish it. It's kind of a stunning story of corruption. We'll get into that a little bit later, too. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. We've got a lot more political news for you. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial because we'll be right back on The Roger Stone Show.
This is The Roger Stone Show.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Welcome to the best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
You know, there is nothing more vicious than an internal young Republican fight. I speak as a former national chairman of the Young Republicans myself. I was elected in 1977 in Nashville, Tennessee at the Young Republican National Convention. The Young Republicans are significant for a couple of reasons. First of all, they tend to be a harbinger of where the party's headed in the future. 1977, I was elected as the candidate who was supporting Ronald Reagan for president. Reagan was subsequently nominated in 1980. But also they provide the foot soldiers for the Republican Party, and with Republican identity growing among younger people, I think this Young Republican National Federation convention this past weekend, once again in Nashville, Tennessee, the very same city where I was elected, is very significant. You had a face-off between the Grow-YR slate headed by Hayden Paget, the incumbent chairman of the Young Republicans, who I think gives lip service to being a Trump Republican, but was more essentially the establishment Republican choice, and the Restore Young Republican faction headed by Peter Giunta of the Young Republicans. I supported the Restore faction, as did my good friend Elise Stefanik and others, because we believe that they were more closely aligned with President Donald Trump's brand of America First Republicanism. Now, typical of these events, we had a controversy where there is a dispute over the outcome. It is very clear that delegates that were committed to the Restore slate, that is the more Trump-oriented slate, were improperly unseated by the Credentials Committee, which allowed Hayden Paget to claim, at least temporarily, a narrow victory. I saw this before under Reagan, in which you have a president who is so popular that even those in the party who really don't care for the president or his policies have to give lip service to his leadership. I think that's what we have here. Will there be a lawsuit over this disputed election? That remains to be seen. But if you look at the states where delegates were unseated, it is pretty clear that somebody wasn't planning to stop the steal, as they say. The Young Republicans, this will be talked about for 30 years. We still hold these grudges. Sometimes in the Young Republicans, the right hand doesn't know what the far right hand is doing. Meanwhile, the Republican Party of Florida held their yearly banquets award and ceremony this week, giving Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, essentially their Woman of the Year award. President Donald Trump correctly called her the most powerful woman of the world. Frankly, I get sick and tired of the attacks on Susie Wiles. I've known her since 1980, and in every presidential contest, she has always chosen the outsider. She supported Ronald Reagan over George H.W. Bush, worked for Reagan, worked in the Reagan White House. She supported Congressman Jack Kemp over George H.W. Bush in 1988. She supported Donald Trump over Senator Marco Rubio and Governor Jeb Bush in 2016. She very ably helmed the re-election of President Donald Trump in 2024, a feat that people said was impossible. Yet I keep reading that she was a lobbyist for Pfizer. That's a lie. She worked for a company where she was neither an equity holder or a principal, where it was merely a job representing a number of non-pharmaceutical clients, but she never worked for Pfizer. It is a smear. She is one of the most capable loyal and effective people Donald Trump has ever had on staff. And frankly, she was the glue that held his presidential campaign together and the glue that helps his president work so effectively. We'll be right back, right here at The Roger Stone Show. Crazy about a short-dressed man.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
This is the Roger Stone Show,
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. Joining me now on the Roger Stone Show is Barry Habib. He is the Chief Executive Officer of MBS Highway, a widely recognized expert on the nation's housing and mortgage market, and a shrewd economic analyst in himself. He was recently appointed by President Trump to the board of Fannie Mae, and he has appeared here on my show, The Roger Stone Show, also at Stone Zone, to critique the Federal Reserve, but also on many, many occasions break down the job statistics when they are released. Last week, President Donald Trump fired the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, blaming Dr. Erica McIntyre for manipulating the jobs reports in the lead up to the 2024 election to try to help the Democrats' chances of achieving victories. I noticed just minutes ago that Larry Summers said that it's impossible to rig the job numbers. I think our guest, Barry Habib, disagrees with that. Barry, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Roger, again. Thank you.
Let's jump into this because I know you have strong opinions about it. You have been a longtime critic at the way they roll out these numbers only to get huge headlines and then a few weeks later very quietly restate them. They're always much, much less impressive when they do. This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that overstated job growth in March of 2024 by approximately 818,000 jobs, and then again right before the 2024 election in August and September by 112,000. These are not small numbers. So what's going on here?
You know, it's difficult to say. The Bureau of Labor Statistics does have some leeway with something called seasonal adjustments, and they've clearly made some mistakes. But the firing of Erica McTarfer is a little hard to get her name correct exactly. Yeah. But I think it's completely justified. Now, not justified because the numbers were off or not justified by one mistake. It's because of a repetition of terrible errors that we all rely upon. People's mortgage payments depend on it. Our debt, our national debt depends on it. Fed decisions depend on it. There's so much, and it's not just the job numbers. They control inflation numbers. So let's be kind of specific here. 3 of the last 4 job reports came in where they made a mistake of over 100,000 jobs. That's a lot. And in addition to that, this percentage on the last 2 revisions shows that they were off by 90%. These are just unacceptable ratios. And I've written to the BLS, I've called into the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, and tried to explain how they can quickly remedy this. And Roger, that's the heart of why she needs to go. It's not because there's mistakes. It's not because this is this is difficult. But there are things that you can do to fix it that are not being done. And when you don't fix things, you have to go. You definitely have to go because you're not improving the situation. And I'd love to just give 2 examples. There are many things that could be fixed, but 2 that could be fixed with a simple keystroke. And this would really alleviate things. So first, on the job numbers. The job numbers depend on something called a birth-death model. It has nothing to do with births of children and deaths of people. It's births and deaths or closures of businesses. You and I have discussed this on the show several times, and the reason why many of these revisions take place and why it's so off is because the birth-death model is horribly inaccurate and unreliable. Now, what this tries to attempt to do is say, okay, we know big businesses, they'll reply with surveys. Medium-sized businesses, we can get some surveys, and we can get some good data there. But small businesses, your dry cleaner, your sandwich shop, these little small businesses, how are you going to capture the data of who they're hiring and who they're firing? It's very, very hard to do. Well, we can lean on ADP, the payroll company, for some of that, which the government can coordinate with. But most importantly, what they try to do is they take a look at businesses that are opening, and they call that births, versus businesses that are closing, and they call that deaths, and then they guess how many people belong to each of these businesses by typical standards. But if you just open a business, it might just be you. Typical might be 20 people working there, so you shouldn't say there's 20 jobs gained. And a lot of times when businesses wind up closing, what happens is that they really wind it down to where there's just one person left. So you oftentimes get this distortion in the numbers, and it certainly does not capture inflection points, which is what's important. So why not take the weighting, the level of emphasis within the report, and reduce it? So while there will be mistakes, you're much less susceptible to having these big revisions. It's a keystroke. It's instead of saying, okay, let's put X amount of weight or heavy amount of emphasis in it, let's reduce that because we don't have good, solid data we could rely upon, so let's put less emphasis on it. I mean, wouldn't that be just what a normal person would do? And the current head of the BLS did not do that, did not attempt to do that in her say. The other thing where it was really blatant, and we pay for this every time, is on the inflation front. On the inflation front, we've been getting terrible numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, predominantly because of something we have talked about, and that is shelter. Shelter is the way they measure rents and home values. They turn it into a service, and they measure it as something called rent and owner's equivalent rent. Rent is great because you can get real data, but then they use owner's equivalent rent. And I want to just give you the emphasis that's put on this. 44% of the core CPI number, very important number that the markets look at, 44% of it is shelter. Of that, 3/4 or 33% of the whole number is based upon owner's equivalent rent. Now, Roger, imagine someone that that's nice person, owns their own home, and if you were to survey them and say, hey, how much could you rent it for? You think you're going to get an accurate answer? I mean, look, I live, eat, sleep, and breathe this. I'm not so sure how much I could rent my home for, okay? And then never mind the month-over-month change in intricacies. And by the way, have you ever asked someone, hey, how much is your home worth? They're typically going to overstate it. See, this is not going to capture the inflection points that's needed. The weighting on this, Roger, is 1/3 of the number that the markets are looking at. 1/3 of the number that the Federal Reserve is looking at in making its decisions. Now, Jerome Powell, who is not a trained economist, Jerome Powell, who is an attorney, is not wise enough to look through this, which is why he put us in this horrific position that when everybody goes to the grocery store, they're paying so much because of the 9% inflation that he was complicit in. Because instead of saying, hey, you know what, we could see the handwriting on the wall everywhere, that prices were going up, that the numbers were going up, but because this 1/3 of the inflation numbers was being held back in 2021 because people weren't saying that they realized that rents were going up. Because if you ask this nice person who doesn't really understand the market but owns a home, hey, what could you rent your home for? They're not understanding the changes that are going on. They said, maybe it was the same amount. Who knows what they're saying? But the inflation numbers stayed lower than they really were in the real world. And he kept printing money through quantitative easing and keeping interest rates at zero. So that means rates were effectively below zero. No wonder why we got all this inflation. Now, Roger, he's doing the exact same thing in reverse. And what is happening is that everywhere we are seeing pointing down in inflation numbers, or in situations where there is less inflation than to be concerned about, but he has been so stubborn. And the one thing that you've heard him say over and over and over again, the job market is solid. He said that hundreds of times. How much egg do you think he has on his face right now? So yes, she had to be terminated for not fixing it. And Jerome Powell has been doing a very poor job in trying to see forward instead of looking backwards.
Barry, I think it was you or the person who pointed out to me that if you look at the two indicators that the Federal Reserve is supposed to take into consideration when determining whether to cut interest rates, inflation and unemployment, today they are either at or lower than they were the last four times that the Fed has cut interest rates. So it appears to me like it's not Donald Trump who's acting politically, as every president has when the statistics merited it, urging the Fed to cut rates. All of Trump's predecessors did the same. But it seems to me to be Jerome Powell who's acting politically. I love the analogy that you use all the time. It's like a man driving a car while looking in the rearview mirror. He seems to base everything he does on old data.
That's exactly right, Roger. And the data does lag. And as we are finding out more and more and more from the BLS, which he's rely upon, the data is faulty. So it is old and faulty. What he needs to do, and again, he's not a trained economist, so perhaps he just does not have the ability to do this. But he's beginning to get pressure from other members of the Fed who typically would just fall in line like lemmings, but they've had enough. Governor Waller, Governor Bowman, and we've even heard Chicago Fed President Goolsbee, although he did not dissent at the last meeting, he has spoken up and pointed out some of these flaws in the data and the fact that the economy needs lower interest rates. And the Fed, by the way, Roger, could be accommodative, which means they want to spur activity, or neutral, saying, hey, we're not going to be influencing the economy, or restrictive. We are very restrictive right now. The Fed is 1% above where it should be to be in a neutral stance. Well, 1% costs us $30 billion a year to our economy. It costs consumers on their mortgage. It costs everyone who has a car loan, every business that has a car payment, all because Jerome Powell has led us down the wrong path. Everyone is paying more.
If you're just tuning in, folks, we're talking to Barry Habib, a member of the Fannie Mae Board, Chief Executive Office of MBS Highway. Also, Barry was widely credited with saving the mortgage industry in 2020 from margin calls due to Federal Reserve actions. It was his presentation to the Fed that created stability at a critical time, a historic event. We're proud to have him, and if you'll just stick with us here and not touch that dial, we'll be right back with more of Habib. When we get back, we're going to ask Barry to handicap the Federal Reserve in terms of who the next chairman may be.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Roger Stone.
In these turbulent economic times, with the Federal Reserve refusing to cut rates despite the fact that unemployment and inflation are either at the same rate or lower than they were the last four times the Fed cut rates, with the Fed continue to print money like it's going out of style, now is the time to protect your retirement and protect your future, and you can do so with the strength of gold. You can convert all or part of your cash savings, your IRA or your 401k, to a gold or silver, and you can do so tax-free. The people I trust to do this are the folks at Colonial Metals Group. I strongly urge you go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone. That's colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone, or go to freegoldguide.com to learn all about it. You'll be glad you did.
This is The Roger Stone Show.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox is coming to Hulu. In 2007, Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Italy. She had no idea her dream would turn into a nightmare. Inspired by the actual events of her wrongful conviction and 15-year fight for freedom, watch the new Hulu original series, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox, on August 20th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Welcome to the Best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
We're back on the Roger Stone Show. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Barry Habib. He is the CEO of MBS Highway, widely recognized in the country as perhaps the country's foremost expert on the housing and mortgage market, but a very shrewd economic analyst in his own right. He's the author of Amazon best-selling book, Money in the Streets, and recently appointed to the board of Fannie Mae by President Trump, and we're delighted to have him. There's a lot of jockeying going on. Of course, the Federal Reserve is political, just like anything else, and Bill Pulte, who is the director of the Federal Housing and Finance Administration, has been, I think, a consistent and articulate critic of Jerome Powell, because he agrees with what Barry Habib said in our first segment, that it's time to cut interest rates on the American people. This week we had a resignation by one of the Fed board governors. Barry, handicap for us what's going on here.
Well, first, Director Pulte's comments, the criticism of Jerome Powell, the job he's done, have been really spot on. So applaud Director Pulte. He's right on the money for that. With respect to the activity going on right now, it is going to get really exciting. Now, one of the Fed governors always vote, so they're very, very important. There's 19 Fed members, 12 of them vote. The governors always vote, and then there's Fed presidents around the country, and they rotate. The New York Fed president votes, the rest of them rotate 4 seats, okay? So governors have a very strong position. Ariana Kugler, who is currently a governor, she was appointed by Biden, she is vacating her seat. She was supposed to vacate it in February. However, she's a relatively young woman, and she's got to move on with her life. So what did she find? A teaching position at Georgetown that she's going to start in September. So she has to vacate the position this month, which really became a little bit of a surprise, which puts a lot of emphasis on what is going to happen with our future with the Federal Reserve and the next Fed chair. Now, when we appoint a Fed chair, it has to be someone who is currently serving on the board. So this vacated seat, it's going to be viewed very carefully, because it is quite possible that the person who's chosen could be earmarked for the next Fed chair position. That's why there's going to be tremendous scrutiny on this, and the markets are going to react very, very carefully with this. I think the markets might react well, because it'll probably be somebody, let me just going to throw a name out to you, somebody like a Kevin Warsh, who the markets will like potentially to be the Fed chair. I mean, I think if I were to handicap who would be the next Fed chair when Jerome Powell leaves and steps off of that position in May, I think current Governor Christopher Waller, who dissented at the last meeting, he's been outspokenly critical of the Fed. He was one of the first ones to agree that the data is faulty on the job numbers, and from the BLS, which we discussed earlier. And I think Kevin Warsh would be rock solid. He served on the Fed. He's brilliant. If you read some of his papers, the guy gets it. He was recently on CNBC, highly critical of Jerome Powell and the Fed, and really spoke so beautifully and intelligently on all of these points that I think we need from a Fed chair. Someone who's got the chops, economically, articulate, and able to understand and look through the bumps and look forward and not through the rearview mirror. Now, there are other choices that could be out there. Is Scott Besson a choice? We know how brilliant he is. he could be a choice, but he's such a darn good Treasury Secretary. And then Council of Economic Advisors, Kevin Hassett's name has been thrown out there as well. All good people, all terrific people. There's a lot of options there, but I truly believe somebody like Kevin Warsh would be a good choice. And then it'll be a horse race. Who would be the pick? Governor Chris Waller currently, who's on the board, or there would be a governor's position for Kevin Warsh. One of those two would be great. Dark horse choice, Michelle Bowman. Michelle Bowman, also a governor, and she also dissented. So she really, I think, kind of a dark horse, but I think, in my opinion, it'll be between Warsh and Waller. And if Warsh is appointed, I think the markets will respond very well, both the stock market and the bond market.
I do think it is entertaining and a little amusing that those many kind of establishment economists who insisted that Donald Trump's pursuit of better tariff deals and trade deals with our trading partners would end up in sky high inflation, massive unemployment, and a stock market crash, when in fact we have a record Dow. Federal revenues are up sharply, and inflation remains relatively low. So Donald Trump was right yet again. Barry, final thought?
Criticized all along the way, Roger. He's brought peace into the world, masterfully handling Iran, protecting women's sports. The big issue, he closed the border. Nobody talks about that, right? Nobody said this more masterfully than you have, Roger, but so many things that he has done and the things that he continues to do. These tariff deals that everybody thought was crazy, the stock market took a dip, now it's at all-time highs, quickly reversing. The man has taken so much criticism, but he's been proven right time and time and time again.
All right. I want to thank our guest, Barry Habib, for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show. Barry, God bless you and Godspeed.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
This is the Roger Stone Show,
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back on the Roger Stone Show. Joining me now, former Congressman Kurt Weldon. He was a 10-term Republican member of Congress from Pennsylvania, serving from 1987 to 2007. He is widely respected on a bipartisan basis for his work on national security, foreign affairs, and emergency preparedness. During his time in Congress, he served as vice chairman of both the House Armed Services Committee and the House Homeland Security Committee, roles that placed him at the center of U.S. defense and intelligence oversight. More recently has gained national recognition for his independent efforts to expose intelligence failures surrounding the 9/11 terrorist attacks. I watched a great, riveting interview with him with my good friend Tucker Carlson, which is why I'm proud to have him on the show today. Congressman Weldon, thank you for joining us on the Roger Stone Show.
Roger, it's a pleasure to be with you, and let me extend a special thanks to you and your family. People may not be aware of this, but as a career firefighter, fire chief, I'm well aware that your family has a heritage of the fire service, and your father and grandfather were both firefighters and fire chiefs in a volunteer capacity. So thank you, and thank your family.
I appreciate you mentioning that. My father, Roger J. Stone Sr., was the fire chief of the Vista, New York Volunteer Fire Department, as was my grandfather, Norris Stone. We're proud of that public service. My uncle was also chief for a period. Congressman, I've long believed that the 9/11 Commission report is our era's version of the Warren Commission report, meaning it was promulgated to support the official government story and suppress the truth. So can you explain how you have faced professional consequences throughout your political career for publicly pointing out the dubiousness of the 9/11 Commission conclusions?
Well, I certainly will. And again, it's a personal thing for me. I am a firefighter throughout my whole career, like my father and brothers. And I was at the World Trade Center in 93, the first attack. Spent the day at Ground Zero. In fact, Governor Mario Cuomo called me that night and thanked me for a 1-hour special order I did on the need to support the fire department of New York, which I was doing. I was back there at 9/11 at Ground Zero looking for my good friend Ray Downey, who was the chief who had taken me through the bombed-out Trade Center in 93 and who was missing and eventually died. We never found his body at 9/11. I immediately said the government was at fault for not giving the support for a fusion center of intelligence that could have stopped this. And those words were not my words. Louis Freeh, former FBI director, when they came out with this publicly, wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And he also went on Good Morning America. And both of these are documents you can get a hold of. And on both of those, he said that 9/11 could have been prevented. In addition, General Keith Lambert, who was one of our Special Forces command officers directing horseback special forces over in Asia, was interviewed in his best-selling book, Horse Soldiers, which became a Hollywood movie. And on page 27, he was asked the question, General, what were your thoughts when 9/11 happened? And the general responds, within seconds, I knew who had done the attack. I knew it involved Muhammad Atta because I had been briefed on a top-secret Army intelligence program. Roger, none of this is in a 9/11 Commission report. The Commission was a total whitewash. Zelikow was handpicked to deceive the American people. His co-chair in this whole effort, Jamie Grelick, was a partner in crime. She represented the Democrats, Zelikow, the Republicans, and their staffer, Dieter Snell. The commissioners never had a clue. They were never given the information necessary to make a determination. And the entire country has been blindsided. I immediately called into question this, and the deep state came after me. I was up for chairman of the Armed Services Committee in 2006. I would have won my 11th re-election handily. 3 weeks before my election, agents from D.C. came to my daughter's house, raided her house at 7 o'clock in the morning with the cameras already there. It was a national story. No one ever talked to my daughter. Nothing. No investigation, no indictments, no questions, zero. The raid was just to stop my election and make it appear as though my daughter, maybe I, had done something wrong. That was the beginning of what we're seeing today. What happened to you, Donald Trump, other people. This all began back in the early days of Clinton and then Bush. It really increased dramatically under Bush because he was not in control. And what the American people have to know is if we don't take back this country, it's going to get much worse than it is today.
To me, the smoking gun to understanding 9/11's official story is the question of Building 7. Few Americans even understand that there was a third building, one that was not hit by a plane, but it collapsed on September 11th. Can you explain to us the situation surrounding Building 7 and why the 9/11 Commission refused to seriously even address this elephant in the room?
Exactly. Another key fallacy of the 9/11 Commission was exactly as you just pointed out. Building 7, 47 stories tall. The third building in the Trade Center complex, and was not hit by any plane and did not have any serious fire. And without any doubt, and even Donald Trump, the businessman, was interviewed by a local New York TV station on 9/11, and in his own words, as he watched the building come down in a replay, he said, "Look, I'm a contractor. That's controlled demolition." Donald Trump back then said what we all know today. That building was not caused by a plane crash. That building was brought down deliberately. There are so many factors that need to be investigated about 9/11. It stinks. It's the biggest scandal in the history of America. It's been the biggest cover-up in the history of America. Roger, we just didn't lose 343 firefighters, including my friend Ray Downey, but we also lost 2,977 civilians and responders. And then we sent, on top of that, because of 9/11, 2,500 soldiers to Afghanistan who came home in body bags looking for bin Laden. And bin Laden wasn't in Afghanistan. He had been hidden by our deep state in Iran. I have 11 silver bullets. They can't be refuted, and I'll take a polygraph on every one of those. We placed, with the help of our allies, Osama bin Laden in Baluchistan in Iran, not with the Iranian government, with the head of their IRG, their intelligence services. That's why we killed Soleimani 5 years ago. I question the CIA as the acting chairman of the Full Armed Services Committee twice, in front of 60 members of Congress from both parties. I had intelligence. On one case, right after 9/11, I said bin Laden's been reportedly in a town called Ladies, and I had gone up and bought a map on Pennsylvania Avenue in D.C., and I said, can you tell me, agents, is that true? And the CIA said to me, in front of 60 members, Mr. Chairman, we've heard similar reports. We can either confirm or deny them. 3 months later, I got intelligence that he was being treated at a hospital, a military hospital outside of Tehran. I got the same response. Then I had Congressman Jack Murtha, the most respected Democrat in the House on defense issues, send over Democrat Ron Klink, who's still alive and will verify the story. They brought a knock-in who had worked for the agency, and he told me that bin Laden was in Iran. I have 12 people, 11 verified silver bullets, that Osama bin Laden was placed in Iran with the knowledge of our government while we sent American kids to Afghanistan. 2,500 came back dead. That's unacceptable, Roger. And the American people need to know until we take back control of the deep state. And it's not the entire deep state. I have friends in the agencies that I support and will go to the wall for. But I'm talking about the scumbags who have made money, the people like the ones that Donald Trump removed the 51 security clearances. I know those people, and they're the ones I'm talking about.
Congressman, surely you know that there were reports of men in North Florida attending a training facility. The FBI was made aware of that. They conducted no investigation before 9/11. After 9/11, they found a residence, jewelry, clothing, automobiles, but they found no suspects. This former Florida Senator Bob Graham has raised this question publicly. There's been a major effort to discredit him. So there's a lot of troubling questions here, and I want you to address this one particularly. The government has steadfastly refused to disclose everything regarding the knowledge and involvement of the Saudi government. We do know that the majority of those men they accuse of attacking the country in 9/11 were Saudis. Little known is the fact that John Brennan, as the CIA director in Riyadh, signed off on the visas of 4 of those men. So what, if anything, is the role of the Saudis on 9/11?
Well, as I've said frequently, Roger, I try to stick to the things that I can absolutely 100% verify and will take a polygraph on. I don't have the absolute verification of any foreign government or nation. I have my own suspicions and on my own concerns based upon things I've been told. But what I can tell you is this. I was the oversight chairman at the time, besides being the representative of all the firefighters in America, and having been at the Trade Center twice and at 9/11. I was the oversight chairman of all military research, $180 billion a year of funding. I was responsible for that funds. We were setting up information dominance centers for our services. The Army Center was at Fort Belvoir, and I was funding it. I was very friendly with each of the leaders of that 20-person unit established by General Hugh Shelton, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They came to me frantically on 9/11. While we're having this attack occurring, they called me on my cell phone and said, Mr. Chairman, we have to see you right away. I didn't know what to think of this. I finally met with each of them separately, 5 separate professionals, all intel experts. And I'll name them all because they're all now public. They all came out and told me the same story. We'd identified Muhammad Atta and the New York cell of Al-Qaeda a year in advance, 1 year in advance. The military intelligence unit, Able Danger, Tony Schaefer, lieutenant colonel in the Army, Scott Philpott, Annapolis grad, the Navy, Dr. Eileen Pricer, Air Force, career intelligence officer, Eric Kleinsmith, the head of our Lima facility. All of them have come out now publicly and verified what I've said. Not just me, each of them. In fact, I had 2 of them on the podcast of Patrick Ben David. We knew in advance, a year in advance, that this New York cell was operational. And furthermore, I'm going to tell you this, Roger, on your show. It's been verified to me by a senior international leader of the FBI, and I have his name and I have his memo, that 2 of the terrorists at 9/11 were on the payroll of the CIA at the time. 2 of the terrorists were on the payroll of our CIA at the time.
Absolutely incredible, but not surprising. 2 of the 8 Watergate burglars were on the payroll of the CIA at the time of the Watergate break-in. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to former Congressman Kurt Weldon, a great American patriot, and we'll be right back.
This is The Roger Stone Show.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is The Roger Stone Show.
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. Remember, coming up is my all-time favorite, Roseanne Barr, the actress, comedian, writer, television producer, and the first victim of the wave of censorship that marked the Obama-Biden years. Now we continue with our conversation with former Congressman Kurt Weldon. Kurt Weldon served with great distinction in the U.S. House of Representatives. He's paid a heavy price for being a truth teller about 9/11 and other important foreign policy issues. Congressman, to me, one of the most heinous foreign policy atrocities in recent memory, perpetuated by Obama's State Department and our NATO allies, was the toppling of Gaddafi in Libya. Overseen by Hillary Clinton, this turned Libya from a relatively stable country into a hellhole, and it unleashed waves of Muslims into Europe. Why was this operation performed when it was, and why was it performed when it so obviously was going to lead to this horrific outcome?
Well, Roger, I appreciate you asking that question. I took my role as Vice Chairman of the Defense Committee very seriously, and whenever I could travel overseas and support the administration, be it Republican or Democrat, on foreign policy issues to avoid war, I did it. So I went to Libya when George Bush publicly proclaimed that Gaddafi had come out and said he was going to renounce terrorism and give up any weapons, and praised him for that, and actually brought his son safe over to meet with Condoleezza Rice in the U.S. I was taking a group of members of both parties to Iraq to meet with our troops, and I said to the State Department, I'm going to stop in Tripoli. I want to see Gaddafi and let him know that we will support our president if Gaddafi is verified that he's doing what he said he would do. The White House tried to stop me, but during my time in Congress, I was not one that could be stopped. So we took a 6-member delegation, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and we landed in Tripoli. There were hundreds of people there, including the first American delegation in 25 years. And we were there for 3 days. It was amazing. We saw all the positive changes being made in the country. Gaddafi was an eccentric person, but on our final meeting of the trip, it was in a tent with him where he told us he didn't want war, he didn't want conflict. But I'll give you a couple of observations, one of which will interest you. On the second day, they took us out to a reservoir of clean water to show us where he had built this man-made system of moving pure water throughout the desert through these massive pipes to help the people get drinking water and sanitation systems. And they set up these tents that we all sat under with the leaders of the neighboring countries. Gaddafi wasn't at this meeting, but the leaders were there. And as we sat there, I looked at this 14-foot-high pipe, and I said, how did you build that pipe? You built our sanctions for 25 years by the U.S. and by Europe. And the Libyan leaders who were with us said, well, Congressman, we didn't build the pipe. I said, well, who did you buy it from? Russia? China? Oh, no, Congressman. I said, well, you've been under sanctions by Europe and by the U.S. Who did you buy the pipe from? And they said, well, we bought it from some company called Halliburton. At the time of that, Dick Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton, right before he became the vice president. That's what the problem. I went back and filed an ethics report about what I had witnessed. Gaddafi wanted one thing. He wanted to establish a nation, a group of nations in Africa, as Europe had done with one economy. He wanted a unified African economy, and he wanted to base it on the gold standard. But the West didn't want that, and they wanted to remove Gaddafi because he had become head of the African Union. The war occurred. The effort was to remove him, and I got a call from 2 of Gaddafi's, the friends of his son, Saadi Gaddafi, who was in the U.S. One was from a close friend of George Bush, Steve Payne from Texas, and the other was a former staffer of Biden, Brian Ettinger. And they said, Kurt, Saudi Gaddafi's here. His father wants you to come to Libya during the war. I went to Libya. I took them over. I hand-carried the letter back from Gaddafi to Hillary Clinton and Obama, offering to resign.
And they killed him anyway. We have to leave it there. Thank you, Congressman Kurt Weldon. We'll be right back with Roseanne Barr.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
This is the Roger Stone Show,
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show, and now joining me is iconic comedian. She's America's Mom, who had the #1 hit comedy television show in America for years, later became a activist and a truth teller in her own right. She's now out with her own new film called Roseanne Barr is America. Welcome to my friend Roseanne Barr. Roseanne, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Hi, Roger. How are you doing?
I am so happy to have you. People need to know that when I was fighting for my life, when they were trying to frame me in the Russian collusion hoax, when people I'd known for years wouldn't return my call pretending they didn't know me, I reached out to you because I needed to raise money for my legal defense. You made a video appealing for funds for my legal defense fund, and here I am today, pardoned, vindicated, because you can't lie under oath about things that never happened, can you? And there was no Russian collusion. It was all BS, and God bless you. I will never forget you're standing up for me.
Well, I knew they were railroading you, and it's great to be vindicated, isn't it?
It really is. Now the only question is whether this little gang of crooks, Obama, Biden, Comey, Brennan, Rice, all of these reprobates, whether they're going to be held accountable, whether we have a two-tier justice system or there's a separate rule for them. I'm praying that Attorney General Pam Bondi will do his duty, and I want to see some arrests. I want to see 29 heavily armed, fully SWAT-clad FBI agents wearing night goggles and brandishing M4 assault weapons surround John Brennan's home at 6 o'clock in the morning, and perp walk him, if he had a wife, and his wife out in front of the Newsmax cameras or the Fox cameras. I'm ready for that moment.
I think all of us are. All of us are more than ready, and I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen pretty quick. Get better, or we're going to be mad.
We're going to be big mad. So, Roseanne, what do you make of this current situation regarding the Epstein files? I mean, Trump is falsely being attacked and blamed by the fake news, while Democrat-appointed judges are the ones blocking grand jury testimony from being unsealed. How do we make sense of this whole thing and try to explain to people out there who are being gaslit and confused?
Well, I think that people who are being gaslit and confused by the Democrats and the media, I don't think they're ever going to get it. So I think we should just give up on them, because I don't think if they look at this and see that, all those years in office, Biden, he never released the Epstein list. He had it. So, I mean, I think that Trump is just smarter than everybody, and he's making the Democrats blame him so that he, blame him and then stop him. So it's like the double bind that they always do. They always accuse the other side of doing what they do, and then they undo it. And so it's like such double standards that you can't miss it. There's no way you cannot see it unless you're just a complete idiot.
Well, you were really the first big victim of cancel culture. You and our mutual friend, Laura Loomer. I was right there behind you. To this day, I'm still banned for life on Facebook, banned for life on Instagram, banned for life on YouTube. I get by without those things. The irony, of course, is if you go to Facebook or Instagram, there's a bunch of Roger Stones. There's dozens of them. Problem is, none of them are me.
Right.
But and they don't do anything about that. We complain. My lawyers complain. They do nothing whatsoever about that. Why?
No, they don't do anything about that. And they also heavily censor anything that Jewish people write. They heavily censor that on X and everywhere else, especially if you're, for your own people. That goes down faster than a leaded balloon. It's taken off, censored everywhere, worldwide, and nobody talks about that either. But it is true.
No, they try to erase you. They try to completely and totally erase you, but they fail because we're both here. So there may be a lot of fake Roger Stones out there, but there's only one real Roseanne Barr, and I'm proud to say we've got her. I want to talk about this new movie, this documentary, Roseanne is America. I got to talk about it because the director and producer, Joel Gilbert, is hawking me by text relentlessly. So I have no choice. But you had the world premiere.
Yeah, he hawked me too relentlessly.
I understand.
He made a great movie, and I'm really happy with it. It shows my whole life, how I got famous, which, it's really funny, and it shows, how I became a comedian. And then the second half goes into the explanation of my tweet and why I was fired. And it gets heavily political, but it's finally I get to talk about what my tweet meant in the context of the years that have passed, including the attack on October 7th of Israel, which was kind of the subject of my tweet. And I finally get to speak out on it and how I was right. And, I was prescient in my tweet. And if it's understood in its geopolitical context, instead of reduced to the stupidest thing they could come up with, I have concern for what's happening in our country, right now. And I'm so grateful that Trump won and that he's doing such a great job. And, all of that is part and parcel of the movie. And it's kind of like my going from being a leftist to becoming a radical constitutionalist American. And so that is kind of what has happened in America. And I think the point of the movie is that, the majority of voters think like I do.
There's no question about that. We are the majority, sometimes the silent majority. If you're interested, folks, you can go get the film at RoseanneIsAmerica.com. That's RoseanneIsAmerica.com. It's on live stream at YouTube Movies, Apple TV, iTunes, Amazon Prime, Tubi TV, and others. Also, video on demand, all satellite and cable networks nationwide. 86 million people could see this movie. You got it on DirecTV, Dish Network, Cox Cable, Comcast. Go.
I'm sorry. No, I hope they do watch it because I think that it really clears up. It's very clear in what's happened to us since I got fired in 2017, and I think it makes very clear why I was censored and fired, because I tweeted about the Muslim Brotherhood and their influence on America, and we're all seeing it right now. So, and we were never allowed to say those words. And still, if you say those two words, you're censored, immediately censored on most media.
You probably don't know this, but until very recently, I was banned on KABC in Los Angeles. I was banned because Tom Arnold falsely accused me of having involvement in the Al Franken case, because I heard from Fox that Franken was going to be confronted with these charges of sexual assault, and I posted about it. It doesn't mean that I was involved in it. I had no involvement in it, but the left decided that I orchestrated the whole thing, and I was banned from KABC. I could never come back and do an interview until about 2 weeks ago, when John Phillips finally got them to lift the ban. So now I'm not only on 77 WABC, but also KABC for that landmark interview. It was nice to be back after all that time.
Well, it's really nice that you're back. They seem to be lifting the bans some places, but, they're not really lifting it. They're just going further and further underground, and that's why America needs to see some of these people arrested, if not all of them, very quickly, because they really did overthrow the constitutional republic of the United States of America, and they need to be punished and called for on it.
Yeah, well, you have a lot of courage to come out and say that. I really wanted to go to the world premiere screening of your film at the National Press Club recently. In my case, any excuse to put on a tuxedo. But unfortunately, I had a conflict. But how was it? Really looked like a good time.
My fans came, and of course they were not in tuxedos. So you would have been out of place. They were in shorts and T-shirts, and I was really glad that they came to that place. It was fun to kind of, show a bunch of working class people to show up there. It was nice to speak with and meet them and, host it there. It was pretty fancy. I had never been there before, but it was fancy and nice.
When we come back, I'm going to ask you about this. I read that your sister Geraldine tragically died after getting the COVID jab, and many others in your family are chronically ill. Is that accurate?
Well, my sister Stephanie.
Ah, I see. Well, it's a tragic situation. We've experienced some division in my own family. It's still delicate, difficult to talk about. But I really like what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing in his efforts to make America healthy again, and to tell tell American people the truth about it. And also, somebody posted this online. They said, Gabbard Barr 2028. Wow, I love that idea. And I know they're not talking about Bill Barr, I know they're not talking about former Attorney General Bill Barr. No. Definitely not. If you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to the one and only comic superstar, Roseanne Barr, and we'll be right back with more of this epic interview. In the meantime, go check out her new documentary film. You can go to RoseanneIsAmerica.com, RoseanneIsAmerica.com. You can also get the DVD by going to Amazon.com. I haven't had a chance to see it, but everything Joel Gilbert produces is first rate. And, well, Roseanne, you're my favorite. I have to admit it. We'll be right back with the Roger Stone Show. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the best of the Roger Stone Show right here on Red Apple Audio Networks.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
Presented by Colonial Metals Group.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. We're talking to the American actress, comedian, writer, television producer, and outspoken patriot, Roseanne Barr. Roseanne Barr, of course, had the groundbreaking sitcom Roseanne from 1988 to 1997, then very successfully revived in 2018 until Roseanne posted a tweet about the Iran nuclear deal and Obama ally Valerie Jarrett. And then suddenly this lifelong civil rights activist was promptly accused of racism over this misunderstood post, and Roseanne and her show were abruptly canceled. I had dinner Friday night with Laura Loomer in Washington, D.C. We were both talking about how we love you so much. Your ears must have been ringing.
Oh, I love you both so much.
And we get along. We probably get along because we're both half crazy. You can join us in some of that. But we're patriots.
Yes, absolutely.
We're patriots, and we put America first. I told Laura I was going to ask you this question because I really don't get it. So you come originally from the left. You had a variety of very liberal views earlier in your life. You've kind of evolved, but you're certainly familiar with the ideology. And there's always been some anti-Israel sentiment on the far left, but recently it has become more vicious and more mainstream than ever before.
No, that isn't true. It wasn't always like that. When I was a girl, my parents were both Democrats, but they said it was because the Democrat Party, as they saw it, was more for the working man. So that's how it was always in our house, because they were working people, My parents both had jobs. And so they thought it was unions for the people and this and that. So the thing is, I always thought that too until I realized as, in television with, when things really changed in America, I was just witnessing it. I was witnessing it when I started doing stand-up in 1980. I call it the great unraveling, where public money started going into private pockets. And so I'd always noticed that and how things changed and how everything was kind of getting hijacked. And as I grew, I just noticed things. And I noticed, boy, the Democrats sure stopped talking about labor issues, and they sure stopped talking about the working man. And, boy, they sure started talking about Israel, didn't they? They sure did. And, then they started talking about everything but the working man and, labor rights. And it's weird. And then I ran for president because I felt like Obama was the worst offender of what a Democrat was supposed to be talking about. His speeches astounded me. And I was at the time living in Hawaii, and I was an organic farmer. And the state of Hawaii was forcing us to use Roundup, Monsanto Roundup on our organic crops. So I went and gave a fiery speech at City Hall, and Monsanto moved off our island, and I was very proud of that. And I gave one hell of a speech, and I decided all you have to do to run for president is give a speech. So I realized that with Obama. So in 2012, I gave a hell of a speech as a socialist, but it was really as a populist. And then when I heard Trump doing it, I fell madly in love with him because I'm a narcissist, and I was like, he's got the right ideas. He's saying the same thing. I campaigned with, we must audit the Federal Reserve. And, I mean, good ideas just occur in the world when God wants them to, I've always thought. And so, that was basically the way I changed, because I said, look at Trump out there talking about labor, American labor, and working people. It's just great. It's what the Democrats are supposed to be doing. So that's why he won, and I knew it. And then I also know now, looking back, the reason they fired me is because they was planning on unleashing the epidemic, or whatever they call it, the COVID, and they couldn't have me on the air because I would have told everybody not to get the shot, which I did. And, I would have told them, too, hey, they're going to steal the election. So they couldn't have me on the air. So they had to find some way to get rid of me.
Yeah, too much truth.
So that's okay. Well, you know what? I feel like God took me out of Egypt and led me to the promised land, which is free speech. And so now I'm doing it, and I'm actually happier and having a better life.
So you aren't on social media as much as you've actually stated it's a brainwashing machine. But you remain very outspoken with your regular podcast.
Well, it is a brain.
Oh, they're loving this back at the station, I can tell you. How can people access your podcast and remain connected with the content that you're putting out?
Am I not supposed to swear on here? I apologize if I'm not supposed to swear.
Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. I'll take you anywhere you come. Okay. I'm just proud to have you and proud that you're my friend.
Well, God bless America, and I just want to say, they're stepping up to trying to divide us stuff. The MAGA folk, they're trying to divide us in every possible way because they're getting paid from people who will benefit from us being divided. So just don't listen to any of it. And Trump is going to release everything, believe me, at the right time because he's a master of timing and he's got it all planned out. And when appear weak when you're at your strongest, right?
Absolutely. All right. Folks, please go to...
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, sweetheart.
You can find me at Roseanne Barr Podcast.
There you go. That was my final question.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Roseanne. We love you. Go get her film, RoseanneIsAmerica.com, and thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?